is unknown. So what does this do for you as a customer? This allows us to answer the following question. Now, when RealProtect sees something that's unknown and is able to say, our machine learning algorithm believes that this is malicious, we can now say, and in addition to that, it is similar to the following threats that we've seen before. It has the following characteristics that we're able to extract from that DNA strand. So how do we actually do this? So if I go into a little bit of a different view, you'll see that we can do a study and analysis on the threats that we understand very well. So in this case, what I've done is I've actually pulled out of the cloud some of the top threats that we're observing throughout our billion sensors and seeing how they map into the cloud of the unknown. It's by doing that that we can then give you that insight that when you see something that is unknown, our goal is it's no longer going to be completely unknown. We can do other things as well. I mentioned that we want to be able to use this data in order to identify targeted attacks. Why does that matter? It matters because if you think about a targeted attack from the attacker's perspective, they have engineered an attack against your environment. How do we detect a targeted attack? It takes two things. Number one, we need to actually see that it's targeted. So we can do that because we've already talked about being able to look at the prevalence of an attack in one environment versus how much we're seeing it in other places. But we also need to have the ability to understand, is it functionally unique? Is it something that's actually different from a standard polymorphic threat? And what's really neat about the data science here is we can find what we call outliers. So what outliers allow us to do is we can find things that have uncommon characteristics, or a different way of thinking about this is we can find things that appear to be engineered for your environment. So putting those two things together, the fact that it's only in your environment and it has characteristics that really look different from anything we've ever seen before, that's the magic recipe that lets us tell you, hey, you really need to pop this to the top of your stack of investigation because this could be targeting you. One of the other things that I've mentioned is we can use data science and AI in order to identify targeted campaigns. So think about it this way. What is a campaign? A campaign is something that has a specific objective. It's targeting a sector, financial services, manufacturing, possibly a geography. It has some core objective. So because of that, we can look at what are the actual trends that we see threats impacting. Here we've mapped threats to specific industrial sectors, and using AI algorithms, we've been able to cluster the intensity by sector. In this first view, you can see that we can see what are the highest level of intensity for specific threats in specific sectors. This is all real data that we are working with in our data science team in order to solve these problems. I'm going to change views, and I can also find, based on our analysis, I can have the model or multiple models identify the likelihood that something is a targeted campaign. So we've come up with a set of algorithms, and what we're doing right now is we're working to validate which ones are most effective to see if we can separate the noise from the signal of things that really do become campaigns in the future. Now you might be sitting there and saying, it's pretty, it looks good, but why do I care? How does this impact me? Well, the other thing that we can do is we can look for targeted campaigns for the sector that your organization is in. Here I've highlighted the financial sector candidates that are likely targets. So basically, I'll zoom in on the ones that are most likely. So here we see these bright red dots. Think about it this way. What the level of red actually means is the percentage of what we've seen being in that sector that is highlighted. So in this case, we see these outliers at the base of the mountain that are very likely part of a forming targeted campaign impacting the financial industry. You'll see different types of industries having different levels of intensity. I can look at our tech sector, I could really look at any sector, but it's putting all of this together that for the first time allows us to use data science and our global view of the data to answer these questions that we could never answer before. Okay, so